Good? Okay, so welcome everybody to our Q&A session. We set this up so that we could answer any questions that people might have that are considering applying to one of our certification programs. I'll be moderating the session today. I'm Erin Leach. I'm the Director of Professional Development for Biomimicry 3.8. And Dayna's going to be answering your guys' questions and giving us an overview of these programs. You could go to the next slide, Dayna. So this is just quickly what we'll be covering over the course of the next hour. After this welcome, Dayna is going to give us the overview of the Biomimicry Specialist and the Biomimicry Professional Certification programs. Then we have two guests that are joining us, Kathy Zarsky, who just graduated in our 2011 B Specialist cohort, and Doug Page, who is currently enrolled in our 2011 B Professional cohort. After we hear from them, we will be taking your questions, and Dayna will be answering you guys. So the format that we would like to follow here is if you guys can type your questions into the chat box, and the questions should be specific to the certificate programs. And I will be relaying those to Dayna and allowing her to answer. So you can go ahead and type in your questions at any moment, and then I'll be going through and passing those over to Dayna when we go to that Q&A period.
Thank you, Erin.
Yep, okay.
So what I'm going to try to do actually is to figure out how I can get a video up here so it's not just a static picture. That way I can engage a little bit more and you can hear directly from me a little bit more about these programs. And sort of I want to get into the history and sort of where they lie at their roots. So the information that I want to provide today in the webinar is both to be able to answer your questions, but also to be able to share with everyone a little bit of a different perspective than what fits into our beautiful PDFs or what's on the website, sort of the behind-the-scenes look, if you will. That's partially also why we've asked some of our current and previous students to join us so that you can hear straight from them a different take on what the program is all about. So I'm going to share. Let's see if this works here. Get my, all right. Are you seeing a picture of me? The video, is that coming up? Erin, can you confirm if there's a video coming?
I'm not seeing it yet, but the screen did change as though it was going to appear.
Trying to, okay. Let's move this over here and see if this helps.
Okay, now I see you.
Okay, great. Okay, so our two programs, the Biomimicry Specialist program and the Biomimicry Professional program, have kind of been a long time in the making. The two-year program grew out of a vision to create a world in which we had a lot more people who were practicing biomimicry at all levels. And as we started to explore what exactly that meant, we came to realize that while biomimicry is very, very exciting and it engages people and they hear the stories and it's so elegant and so beautiful that it sort of gives this misconception that it's also really very easy to do. And if it really were that easy, how come we don't have more people doing it? And when we started to really explore that internally, we realized there's actually a whole set of skills and experiences and knowledge and tools and background that one needs in order to really take biomimicry to the next level. And so from that, we began dreaming up what would it look like to sort of empower individuals with those tools and empower them collaboratively in a community and a group. So back in 2008, we kicked off our first two-year program. We called it the 2YC, two-year certificate program. And we had, I figured the best way to get this out in the world was to just advertise it. And then we advertised it, and before we had even built the program, and we had 57 people show up from all over the world to apply, to spend 2 years really sort of showing their passion for the field of biomimicry and taking those tools and working with them in many different ways. So we started our first cohort with 16 individuals, 4 biologists, 4 engineers, 4 business people, and 4 designers from as far away from me as South Africa to right in our backyard here in Montana. Then it was such a fabulous program. We went to 5 habitats around the world and really got our hands dirty, got in the dirt, learned an incredible about nature from a lot of different spaces and places, and realized that this program needed even more substance to it because it was such an incredible beginning, and the students didn't want to graduate. They wanted to keep on learning. They wanted to stay in the program. So with the second cohort, which was kicked off last January in 2011, so they are 1 year into their program now, the 2-year, we advertised it again. We got 90 applicants for just the 16 slots. Amazing individuals applying from around the world, and we have an amazing cohort. We have a biologist from Cairo who's learning how to learn from the organisms that are in the desert and sharing that with her students. And we've got designers and architects from Mexico. We've got an engineer from Zimbabwe who's built roads all over Africa, who's learning how to take these lessons back to Africa. So an incredible group of folks. We've got one of the designers from that cohort joining us here today. And now the program has evolved in where we visit 7 habitats around the world over the 2 years, and we have a series of online courses that support that, all with the primary intention of empowering these individuals to bring biomimicry to the world. And I bring that out as an important distinction because the biomimicry professional program is really about creating facilitators who want to foster and aid the adoption and the practice of biomimicry everywhere they possibly can. And so the design of the program sort of equips them with the background and the skills and tools they need to do so. They learn to become fabulous communicators in print and written form. They learn about the different disciplines, how to work with designers if they're not designers, how to work with engineers, how to learn from biologists, how to bring it all into the business context, and then engage in an 18-month-long practicum where they sort of really put this all to work. So that's the 2-year program sort of in a nutshell, sort of where it came from. And from that process and all of these individuals being incredibly passionate about bringing biomimicry and applying and wanting to invest their time into the program, we came to realize that we also needed a more compact version, a more accessible version, but also a way to empower individuals who really wanted to bring biomimicry back to their own practice, that they wanted to specialize in biomimicry in their field of interest. And hence the Biomimicry Specialist program was born in 2011 as well. And this is an 8-month program. And this program meets just 3 times, but in the same habitat each time, so you get to watch it as it changes seasons and what happens to the flora and fauna and the ecosystem in that time frame. We have a West Coast cohort and an East Coast cohort within North America, and we've got individuals actually coming from all over the world who are eager to participate and can't wait for a cohort to start perhaps on their continent. And the 8-month program is really about, here are the tools, here are the information, the knowledge, and the tools of biomimicry, and here's how to use them. And during the course of the program, you practice using those tools in your world, in your sphere. And designed into the program is a really fabulous 10-week session in which you you actually take a project of your own choosing to the next level by incorporating biomimicry into it, and you do it under the mentorship and guidance and in the community of your cohort of collaborators. And so here's the tools, here's how to practice them, and then here's how to become a specialist in your field, in your world, bringing biomimicry to that place. And so we're very excited about both of these programs, and we wanted to share that and be available to answer questions and to talk further about them so that you all can understand perhaps what you'd like to get out of this program work should you decide to try to go down this path. So I think that's all I want to say right now, Erin, without having more specific questions to answer. And I think it'd be great for you guys to hear from both Kathy and Doug about their experiences in the program.
Okay, sounds great. So we'll get this PowerPoint back up, and then we'll hear from our two program participants.
Okay, I'm going to go back to that. There we go.
Okay, so we're going to start with Kathy Zarsky. So Kathy, if you could unmute yourself. And let's see if
I might have to do that.
could you unmute her?
Here I am.
Okay, and so we would love to hear from you about how was your experience in the Be Specialist program and the value that it's meant to you personally.
Yeah. My journey with biomimicry started before the Be Specialty program. I did one of the week-long immersion workshops in Veracruz, Mexico. And it just, it was that moment in time in my life where I realized I found my calling, so to speak. And so the Be Specialty program was a long time in coming for me because I was eager to keep going, just like Dayna described with her first 2IC cohort. Once the learning starts, you don't want to stop. So when this program opportunity appeared to me, I just jumped on it. And so what it's meant for me is a means to continue the learning. I should preface that I do believe the learning is a lifelong kind of endeavor. It doesn't stop with this program because that catalog of nature's genius is unending and ever-changing. But what's unique about the program, I would say in either case, but for me specifically what I place great value in is that biomimicry is so cross-disciplinary. And so you come to these trainings with your language and your understanding of things. So my background is sort of green building, commercial real estate projects. That's the language that I brought, my understanding of what sustainability was. Well, you integrate that with biology, and you have biologists there, you have graphic designers there, you have all of these other professionals there learning biomimicry with you, bringing their own unique language and understandings of the world to the conversation, plus then the biomimicry language and methodology. So the immersion in that context is outstanding because I can't think of any other type of training out there that allows that type of multidisciplinary integration. The other thing that was great about the course, and the program is evolving, and so this next cohort is going to get a refinement of all of this, but we have these 3 face-to-face gatherings that are some of the most intensive learning because you have sounding boards with your instructors. You are in that place that you're doing intensive study, which is always very inspiring. And you get to do all of these exercises as a group. But then there's this online period of learning in between, which now, you get to go back and you're on your own and really testing how much of this did you digest and really understand, and how do you apply that. And it becomes a whole other type of sort of collaboration and communication during that time. But what it's done for me overall as a program is, one, connect me more deeply to a community of practicing biomimics, some of which I see are listening in on the call here, and help me understand really some of the best ways that I could apply this. Because I think I went in with one understanding of what I was going to do with biomimicry, and I left with another, which I didn't expect. And it was actually a really good surprise. And I could probably go on, and I don't know if you want me to answer questions later or now, but.
No, that's great. Thank you so much, Kathy. And I think that we hear from so many students that this is really just the culmination of a sort of lifelong curiosity about the natural world. And once they start learning about biomimicry, they just get hooked. And so this is really just kind of a jumping off point for continued learning. So that is a pattern.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much for sharing. And then we'll jump over to our next guest speaker that we have.
Hi, Erin. Thanks. You took care of all the mute controls. I knew you were going to use that picture. One of my favorite hobbies is getting out. Yeah, one of my favorite hobbies is getting out in nature. But let me just back up in that. For me, I really came to biomimicry through sustainability, through a network of sustainability activity in the Cleveland area. And Janine Benyus came to speak, and we kind of learned a little bit more about this as a process. And so I really came at it as a designer, as a problem solver, looking for other tools to help me do a better job in sustainability. And what I've been amazed at is how much more I've gotten out of this kind of program. It is so deep and so rewarding. And one of the things I was amazed about the first time in the in-person sessions, and I'll have to echo some of the things Kathy mentioned about the in-person sessions, are you really dive in. The word immersion makes a lot of sense to me. And you find out that you're not alone. There's a lot of people like us out there. One of the things I discovered also in that our first circle, the first group time you get together, I realized this is the most diverse group I've ever been a part of. Yet at the same time, you feel so closely connected to every one of them because you all have these similar attitudes about the planet and about nature and about how we can use this to make it a better place. And then there was another time when we were talking, doing sort of an opening circle, and I realized we're similar, we come from different cultures, yet everyone has a really unique personality. So just that rewarding part of the in-person sessions is one of the things I will never forget. One of the benefits I have found, getting back to the picture up here, is this is actually an Aleutian-style kayak, sort of a 1,000-year-old design that I made at a workshop. So there's no hardware in it. It's built old school. And I love to get out and experience nature. But now that I've been studying, as you can see, I take my notebook with me, I take my sketchbook, and I go out. And what this does is it gives me a new perspective. It allows me to see things in a whole new way, like discovering this log that's so half rotten. From one side, it actually looks more like earth than a log. And from the other side, you can see it's still a log. And so it's sort of in this transition mode. And you can see how it's becoming a nurse log for all kinds of other species growing on it. And as far as it kind of gets back to all the passions about how I've gotten into biomimicry, here's a place that I can enjoy the outdoors, I enjoy science, and I enjoy design. And here's something that I found out, they all come together. And the fact that now I can look at nature in a whole new way as a mentor is really fascinating for me. It certainly is a way to give hope also. One of the things I've noticed also as a designer and as an educator is I do teach design at the Cleveland Institute of Art, and we talk about process all the time. And I'm amazed when I got into this program, I expected to learn about biology and engineering and business. I didn't expect to learn a lot of new things about design and process. And so there's so much more you can learn even in your own subject area as you learn to look at things differently. I've learned a ton about how I can improve my own process and even share that with students. So it's absolutely probably the best program I've ever been part of in its richness and its depth. So thank you, Erin.
Thank you so much, Doug, and to you too, Kathy, for sharing how it's been for you guys. These are both very innovative programs, and it's so useful for people to hear your side of the experience. So thank you so much. So now we will switch into the open questions and answers period. So please do feel free to type in any questions that you might have about the programs into the chat box there. And I have a few questions that were sent to me beforehand that we can start with, but please do type in anything that you'd like for Dayna to answer into that chat box. So Dayna, I think that you wanted to switch to your video at this point, and then I'll ask you the first question here.
Okay.
Okay, so I received a question that says the following: Given the huge impact of the built environment and of cities on the world's ecology, is city planning a part of the curriculum?
So when we design the curricula for either program, we focus primarily on how biomimicry can serve many of the other different challenges that arise in the world. And in the Be Specialist program, by design, if urban planning is your forte or your passion, then there's very, very many opportunities to sort of apply those tools and see what happens. Part of the program work does talk about how we've applied the tools and how we've used those. So, for example, in the space of urban planning, we talk about using life's principles, which is one of the tools that we use, as a set of aspirational goals that can actually be used for the design of cities. And we can talk about programs and where we've actually tried to do this in a couple of different projects in India, and one in Bandar Seri Begawan, which is the capital of Brunei, and talk about how those tools and the tools that we've developed to sort of facilitate that. So we share a little bit of how we're using the tools and provide the opportunity in the Be Specialist program for you to play with those tools if that's where your interest lies. In the Be Professional program, we go into quite a bit more depth in terms of how we've used the tools and how you could learn from them, as well as actually meeting folks that we've interacted with. When we go on these site visits in our 7 in-person sessions, we always bring in guest speakers, guest lecturers. We visit labs, we visit universities, we visit corporations to see how they're incorporating biomimicry. So depending on our location and where we can make the connections, those stories and that world in the built environment may rise to the surface. And the other place where that can happen is in the choice of the practicum. And the practicum is the 18 to 20 month long process by which you are teamed up with, by selective choice, your choice, a biologist, an engineer, design, and a business person. So the group of 4 takes on a challenge. And the group, the cohort, suggest challenges that they might want to work on. We put challenges forth, and then through sort of a voting process where you say, this is my first choice and my second choice, we try to create the teams, and it very well may be that you end up on a team where for 18 months you dig into that very topic of what does it mean to apply biomimicry in the built environment. It's a little more specific. The challenge would be more targeted in that realm, but it's certainly a possibility. Erin, you have another question for me?
Yep. I have another question here that says, how can biomimicry and biomimics change the impact that we have on the environment?
Well, if we don't change the impact for the better, then we shouldn't be here. I mean, that is the work that we are all about, and we've been from the very get-go. That to us, biomimicry is much more than the bridging and the connection between life and design, or life and human technologies. But it very much includes an ethos component, a sustainability component. And we talk about something we call the essential elements of biomimicry, which includes 3 parts. One is the reconnect piece, which has all to do with how we're connected to the natural world, a reminder that we are nature, how we learn from nature, the lessons, and so on. So this reconnect piece is an incredibly important component of doing biomimicry. Another really important one is the ethos. What's worth doing? What is worth solving? What is worth applying and learning from nature's lessons for? And, well, really, we should be looking at how we as a species can learn to fit in better on this planet. And then the last piece, of course, is emulating. So what exactly are you doing with that knowledge, and how you've learned from the strategies of nature, and putting that together. So emulate, reconnect, and ethos combine together into what we go forth with biomimicry. So part of the dream of training and empowering a networked community of biomimics is for that purpose of bringing about both environmental and social justice to the world, and really changing the impact that humans are having on the planet. Our ultimate motto underneath all of this is about creating conditions conducive to life. And so that's the intention, which reminds me of a piece of the program which happens less so. I mean, it's definitely part of the program by virtue of the intense experiences that you have with your cohort. But this community that graduates from the program is a very, very special group. Right now there are 54 individuals in that group with the B Specialist program, which is about to start in the next few weeks, and applications for that are due also on March 2nd. That will be another 40 or so individuals joining that group. And that networked community that's really invested time and brains and heart and love and passion into learning biomimicry can work together and take it to the next level. And amazing things are being cooked up. Doug, who you heard from, is starting a PhD program in biomimicry at the University of Akron, and he's collaborating and bringing in folks that have had other levels of training, as well as someone from the B Specialist program. And the two of them, who happen to be in the same neighborhood, we're not in the same program, Sarah, are dreaming up new possibilities. And the other day I learned that Claire from South Africa from the first cohort, and Doug, who's a designer from the second cohort of Be Professional, and Nan, who's from Washington, also a designer, are working with one of the board members from Biomimicry 3.8, and they're dreaming up a whole online digital magazine around biomimicry. And because of these connections that they have, the possibilities are just immense. And so part of that lifelong learning that you get is definitely infused in this program, but so is a lifelong community.
Okay, great. One more pre-sent question, and then I'll jump over to those that are being sent through by chat. But generally, what's the difference in the ways that the two programs empower an individual to practice biomimicry?
Okay, sure, I'll talk about that. I think like most programs, it's also up to you and how you take the work and what you choose to do with it. But by design, the Biomimicry Professional Program is really intended to empower you to empower others. To be a facilitator of bringing biomimicry forth in the world in whatever it may be, because you become incredibly adept at communicating, sharing ideas, talking about biomimicry. You become adept at facilitating the process, at helping others learn how to use the tools. By virtue of participating in the Biomimicry Professional Program, you also complete the requirements for our Speakers Bureau, our Workshop Instructors Bureau, and our Consulting Bureau. So those are built in, that you get those skills to do that as well. In the Biomimicry Specialist, it's more about becoming a biomimic in the sense of becoming a practitioner, that you now have the tools at your fingertips that you can apply and take to the next level. Now, as I mentioned before, it's also what you do with it. So Kathy took the Biomimicry Specialist program, and she took those tools to an entirely new level, and she's started a regional alliance in Texas and is communicating and sharing about biomimicry and getting others engaged and teaching workshops and sort of taking it to her level. So there is a design in the program of the types of information and skills and opportunities that we build into it, but then there's what you do with it.
Okay, great. We have a question regarding the candidate selection process for I assume, for both programs.
Sure. So for the Biomimicry Specialist program, we look for sort of a baseline set of requirements. Are you going to be able to take this information and these tools and do something with it? And so the criteria is not nearly as restrictive as the Biomimicry Professionals, because it's kind of up to you what you do with it. So we're just sort of looking to make sure that you get the most out of the program. So for example, if you're still in your undergraduate program and you're fresh out of high school into college and you've got no work experience and no sphere, we really discourage you from taking the program, because you won't get out of it what someone who's had a little bit of street creds, if you will, might, because then it makes more sense where and how to use these tools, and you have an in-depth understanding of your world and where the relationship between your world and the other lie. So we want to get as many biomimicry specialists out in the world as we possibly can. We had one cohort last year. We have 2 cohorts this year. Our dream is 5-6 years from now that we have 10-12 cohorts around the world that are going through the program, because we definitely believe it's an abundant world, and there is no shortage and need for folks who can be empowered and mentored by nature's genius and transform the way we live on this planet as a species. The Biomimicry Professional program is definitely more selective. It's, you got to narrow down from 90 to 16 or however many applicants we have this next time. And the way that works is that you are put in a pool with your discipline group. So if you register in your application that you are most closely aligned in the field of biology, then you'll be assessed with other biologists. If it's in the field of business, you'll be assessed with other business. We definitely have folks who have space in both camps. In our first cohort, we had someone, an undergraduate in biology, that had done an incredible amount of biological field research and went on to get a master's in architecture. And she actually played the role of a designer in the program, but no doubt, of course, brought her biology with her. And we ask you, are you comfortable, if you live in 2 camps, and we've decided to accept you in the program, are you comfortable playing this role? We also had an engineer in the program who had a design and an engineering background. We asked him if he'd play that engineering role to hold that space. So once you're in this pool of your discipline group, then we begin to look for things like what is your vision for this work? Does what you want to get out of it fit with the design of the program? We'd hate for you to spend 2 years doing something that is not built into the design of the program if that's not what your vision is. Where do you want to take this? Do you have the goal to really transform your career to being all things biomimicry? Is that where you want to dream and to go with this? Is another factor. We look for things like, have you worked with other disciplines before? Do you have any idea what you're getting yourself into when it means to interact with others? And we also look at the cohort as a whole. You know, what value do you contribute to the other members? Do you bring an entirely new perspective? Doug talked about that the big piece that he takes home from it is what he learns from the others, and so that's a big part of it for us as well. I think all of us have learned an incredible amount from Sarah, the biologist in Cairo. Of course, she's sharing with us her experience of what's happening in Cairo over this last year, but then also just all of her perspectives growing up have been strongly influential for a lot of the students in the program. Currently, our cohort right now is 50% from the United States, and the other 50% is from the United States. And so we represent, I think, 9 different countries, and like we counted at one point, there was like 17 different languages spoken by the group. So what does that group picture look like also plays a role. Erin, you're heavily involved in the selection process as well. Is there anything you want to add to that?
Well, I would just say that when we are going through the applications, we're looking for the professional certificate program specifically. We're looking for a degree of creativity. I think that's coming through in the applications. How well are you able to sort of articulate and demonstrate a leadership role that you've already taken within your community or within your profession? We need people in the leadership position in the biomimicry community, and it takes a lot of guts to be doing this kind of work out there in the world. So we're kind of using a filter and looking for those kinds of characteristics in our applications. After we do the applications, we also go through an interview process of a smaller group of people. So we try to get to know them beyond just the paper application, and we do an interview process. So, and from there we pick the final people that we'd like to join us for the next crew.
Great, thanks for adding that bit.
Yeah, so let's see. The next question that we have here is from a person whose background is in commercial real estate consulting, and he has a specific question about how biomimicry can be used to address crisis and disaster management.
Well, that's a great question, and one of the things that we look at when we look at life's principles is we talk about a principle of resilience. And there actually is a group right now in the Be Professional program whose practicum is specifically on the topic of resilience and what does it mean for organizations. In this case, they're looking at sustainable manufacturing businesses to build resilience into business. And what are the principles, and how can you learn from the natural world how to maintain function in light of a disturbance? And that's what, by definition, resilience is. So that's a topic that is obviously a very rich one. They're spending 18 months digging into it. But life has been subjected to disturbances for, well, 3.85 billion years. That's the dynamic nature of the planet. And so life wants to survive and sustain itself, and therefore has to learn how to deal with those disturbances. So it's very much an easy lesson. Well, maybe not an easy lesson, but there's a lot to learn from the natural world. How we apply it is kind of up to us, but it gets into things like building in decentralized and distributed systems, building in redundancy, and including diversity. Those are all really important strategies that life uses to be resilient.
Okay, we've got another question that's asking how a certificate in biomimicry is different than the natural step And I'm not clear if this is a certificate in the natural step or how the two processes are different, but maybe you could just speak to how biomimicry relates to other sustainability frameworks.
Sure. Yeah. The way I like to look at biomimicry in light of many, many tools that are out there is that it is a tool and it's a framework. And all of these have really important value and application in many different ways. And one is not the silver bullet, more so than any other, but there is a unique sort of resonance that each of these sustainability tools, be it the natural step, be it cradle to cradle, or be it biomimicry, that has with different individuals and why they choose to go down that path. I know that the natural step has varying levels of educational and training programs. I'm not familiar with them enough to sort of do a side-by-side comparison, but for us, the amount of effort and time and really delving into this topic that one experiences through either of the certificate programs really is pretty significant. I mean, we consider the biomimicry professional program equivalent to a master's degree, and we are very much in the process of exploring what it means to even get it accredited as a master's degree. We had the opportunity to accredit it in the past and found that the accreditation process required us to conform to U.S. standards and expectations, like no classrooms outside kind of thing. I mean, that's an exaggeration, but that didn't work for us. That it would require us to downgrade the program rather than upgrade it, and we weren't willing to compromise the quality of our program in order to do that. So we just have to find the right partner. But I bring that up to sort of demonstrate the amount of sort of investment and the level of training that one gets out of this program. And we talk about it being on average 6 to 10 hours per week for the Be Professional, not counting your in-person sessions, and 3 to 6 hours per week for the Be Specialist. And I think both Doug and Kathy will tell you that you can easily put more than that in there depending on how much effort you want to do. And I just want to speak one more thing about biomimicry relative to the other sustainability tools out there. It really resonates with me, and that's why I'm here. And the reason why this particular framework, perspective, discipline resonates with me, and to the point where I've devoted my whole life to it, is that it has a very interesting sort of open door policy, if you will, with a lot of different individuals. And it goes back to those essential elements I talked about before. People can walk into this through the Reconnect space because they have a huge love of nature. And wouldn't it be cool if you could learn from it and do something sustainable? But they come from it from the natural world. Then you have a group of people who are just really into innovation and ideation, and isn't that cool, and innovation is amazing. And many of our clients come to us and say, hey, we want to innovate. And we say, well, that's great. Let's innovate learning from the natural world, and let's make sure we do it sustainably. But the innovation is their front door, and they, quite frankly, wouldn't call the natural step because sustainability was not on their radar screen, but innovation was first, and then once we're in and they're like, okay, well, wow, we can do this and do it more environmentally friendly, sure, sounds good. And then we have individuals that come at it first and foremost from the sustainability perspective that actually have very little connection with nature, or perhaps know very little about design and innovation, but they see the potential of it from the sustainability space. And so for me, that's something that makes it this incredibly interesting and accessible tool, framework, perspective, however you want to call it, but also it's so incredibly positive. This is what we can do. This is full of vision and full of possibility and beauty and elegance, as opposed to don't do this and don't do that, and by the way, don't do this either, and that's bad, and don't do that, which isn't really all that engaging for folks. So that's my personal connection with it. And so maybe that partially answers the question of what's the difference, is we focus on what really could be as opposed to what shouldn't be.
Okay, great. There's a question about the cost of the certification of this course, and I want to let everybody know that you can download all of the program information in a couple links that I've already typed into the chat box. If you scroll up to the top, you'll see a link to download the professional program information package and a second link to download the specialist program information package. And in there, you'll find all of the program cost information, schedules, things like that. So please do be sure to check that out, and you'll find a lot of logistical information in there. The cost of the specialist program is $12,800, and for the professional program, it's $32,000, and a breakdown of those costs are included in both of those documents.
And I would just add to that, we basically run these programs at cost because we just want to get them out in the world. And for us, we want to offer the highest quality program that we possibly can, because if we haven't empowered you and mentored you so that you can go out and make a difference in the world, then we're wasting our time too. And so it's really important to us that we design these with the very most and utmost quality.
Thank you. And the other part of this person's question was, well, he describes a system that categorizes nature's design so that one can research various options. I'm assuming he's talking about Ask Nature, and he's asking, does this class offer this?
Well, one of the things that we teach in the program is how to access the natural world. So sometimes we talk about this idea that humans are on one side of the river and the rest of life is on the other side, even though we are nature. And we've got to figure out how to build that bridge. And so throughout the whole program is very much what does that bridge look like, and how can we go over and say, excuse me, can we borrow your recipe? Can we learn from you? And so there are some systematic ways in which that's done, and some systematic categorizations. Yes, on Ask Nature, we actually spent almost a year building the taxonomy that exists on Ask Nature, which is life organized by function. If any of you have studied biology, you know that we tend to learn it by, well, here's what happens in South America or in this kind of habitat. And so we learn about life geographically, or we learn about it taxonomically. We learn about the birds, and then you learn about the bees, you learn about the plants or whatever it might be. Ask Nature takes that categorization, splits it all apart, and says, let's learn about how nature does color. And so you could learn about the octopus and the dragonfly and the human iris and how leaves change color. And that's a cluster. That's a categorization that has deep principles that you can draw out and learn from. You can learn from them very metaphorically, and you can also learn from them very, very tangibly, very specifically, whether you're talking about doing chemistry or you're talking about these deep principles and lessons about how color is used for communication. And so that's one of the sort of tools that we definitely learn how to work with. We also do work in both programs about how to develop your own natural history skills, how to be a better observer of the natural world and see it in a different way than you might be used to seeing it. The photo of Doug in the kayak, he's doing what we call an eyesight. And sight is spelled, it's not spelled eyesight this kind, but like play on Mac, I.S.I.T.E, because you're involved. I am involved on a site in nature using my eyesight as well as my other senses, and learning how to sort of listen to what nature might offer. And so both of the programs have a built-in component where you do a lot of that and hone that practice. So hopefully that answers that question.
Okay, great. And we have a good question here about the timing of the programs, and are they available every year?
Yeah, okay, so the Bee Specialist program is on the same calendar every year. So it starts in mid-March with an online portion, and the first in-person session is the first week in April. And that will repeat year after year. So this is January, February is always the application time, and the program runs for 8 months until the first week of November. The Bee Professional program is a 2-year program, but we've designed them so that they overlap, so that you get to meet the previous cohort and you get to meet the next cohort. And that's an important part of the bridging. So the September session is when the next cohort of the Bee Professional program starts. And it starts, and it has a 3-day overlap with the current cohort, which that will be their 6th of their 7th sessions. And they all, in the Bee Professional program, you get to graduate in Costa Rica, on a beach in Costa Rica. So that's a nice benefit. So the 1st and the 6th sessions overlap, which means the Bee Professional program runs about every 20 months for the 2-year program. Okay,
and you spoke a little bit about your experience with accreditation in the past, but what is the plan for accreditation in the future?
Yeah, part of it is our focus has been on really making sure the programs are as robust and as high quality as we possibly can. But over the course of 2012, we want to dig deeper into this. We've had a couple of inquiries from different universities in terms of saying, hey, that they've actually approached us and said they're interested in collaborating. We have to explore what it means to get a U.S. accreditation. Accreditation, actually, as sad as it is it's just big business. It's more about the business side of it than it is about the quality of education, and that's from the experience I had of going through it the first round. So for us, if we can maintain the quality and the integrity of the program and find a good partner that allows us to do so, then we're all for it. It may mean that we end up accrediting with a university outside of the United States. Right now, there's one in the Netherlands that has been knocking on our door. And but the really interesting thing, and I don't know if it's true about the European model, but when we explored accreditation with a U.S.-based institution, we learned that it would be retroactive. So we actually are teaching the program, managing the course records, managing the student information and so on, so that even if it is 3 or 4 years from now that we are able to get the accreditation, that it actually the previous students are grandfathered in. You actually will be able to say then that I have a master's in biomimicry, which is very exciting. So that's something that we're eager to make sure can happen. It would be definitely an advantage in the accreditation exploration space, that's one of the requirements we want to go for, is to make sure that all the students who really have gone through the same rigor have that opportunity to claim that type of credential.
Okay, we have another question here that's asking, well, I won't try to translate it, I'll just tell it to you directly. Does biomimicry have an effect on human adaptation and evolution, or is it more of a networking and translation of other species' ecological sustainability?
Well, it's definitely the latter. May there be a result an emergent property from the former, it's certainly possible. One of the things that we like to think about with biomimicry is that it is simultaneously an emerging discipline with an ancient practice. And we speak to this idea of remembering and breaking that word apart of and membering. So bringing ourselves back into membership with the other species. And does that eventually encode itself in our genes so that we see an evolutionary trajectory that realigns us closer to our first 200,000 years of Homo sapiens sapiens? Possibly, ideally, perhaps that happens. I certainly think there's great potential for it to happen at sort of the social evolutionary, the cultural evolutionary level. And we talk about biomimicry as a meme. And the idea of a meme is an idea that passes through culture very much in a way that a gene passes through a population. And a meme is an idea that works, and therefore it gets passed on. So in that evolutionary sense, we hope that it becomes a meme embedded in human culture, or re-embedded in human culture in that form of remembering who we are as a species on the planet.
Great. And I think we have time for one more question. This is really a two-part question, which is, would it help for a designer to take some biology classes before going into a biomimicry program? And the second part is, what other types of courses or skill sets would be complementary to the biomimicry programs?
Well, it helps everybody to take biology, whether you do and that's a biologist speaking, whether you do biomimicry or not. I mean, that's the essence of what we're talking about. The more we know about the natural world, the more we'll sort of be able to say, wow, we could be like that, or we're not like that, and we should be like that. And you certainly could, and what we found actually is we teach a lot of biology in the program, and there is a course called Biology Taught Functionally. So you learn a lot of biology in the program, but some find that that's not enough. They're just like suddenly so eager. So we have a couple of folks that have enrolled in like natural history courses that are offered by their local university or natural history center because they're so eager, or they start subscribing to Natural History magazine, or start reading books that they never had on their bookshelf before. And so that's certainly a benefit, but it doesn't necessarily, if you haven't, that's not a hindrance. When it comes to sort of other complementary disciplines, I mean, we've relatively loosely define biology, engineering, design, and business. And we definitely have some folks that sort of straddle or not quite fit in some of those in terms of the Be Professional program. But some of the other sort of complementary disciplines that we try to embed in the training of the program are things like systems thinking. You've heard me talk a lot about communication skills in all formats. And we also do a lot of personal growth and development. So we in the Be Professional program specifically, we have a cocoon group that is a close group of 4 individuals teamed up with one instructor. We actually have a student-to-teacher ratio in the Be Professional program of 4 to 1. And that group sort of helps you go through some of the, all the other stuff that you come to work with that is your own sort of personal growth and development. So those perspectives are also, so they're not necessarily a discipline, but they're also elements that are built into the program work. Those are the ones that sort of come up the top of my head. Organizational development is a key one that blends a number of those sorts of pieces, and we definitely had some folks involved in organizational change, a whole team in the first B Specialist program worked on that topic specifically.
Great. Well, I think that brings us right up to the hour, so I want to thank everybody for joining us today. I think you guys had some great questions. And thank you to Dayna for answering all of these questions and giving program overview, and to Kathy and Doug for your insights both in our session here and on the chat. And I see the conversation continues. Okay, where can you find the links that were previously mentioned? If you scroll all the way up to the top of the chat, you'll see some links that have been plugged in there. And if you can't, if you're having trouble with those, feel free to go to biomimicry.net and you can find your way to professional pathways and navigate to the certificate programs. And just a quick reminder that the application deadline is March 2nd, so we look forward to seeing some applications from you guys.
And I would also add, although Erin, I don't know if you're ready for this, but Erin's email is embedded in that program information. So if you have additional questions that you weren't able to get answered here, certainly contact Erin and she'll forward them to me if it's better for me to answer or she can answer. But do know that we're here because we really want to make sure that it's a good fit for everybody involved. So we're eager to, and that's why we hosted this, so that we could be here to help answer some questions.
Please do feel free to send me any questions or comments that you have. And yes, this WebEx will be available as a recorded session on our website.
Great. Thanks for joining us, everybody who did, and hopefully we'll see you outside someday.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.